The night was cold, the kind of cold that made metal pipes sing and froze water into hard glass. The colony city slept under a pale yellow moon, neon lights flickering weakly on broken signs. Wind rushed through the empty streets carrying dust and trash like whispers from another world. At the far end of a narrow alley, something moved. At first it looked like a forgotten bag of trash, a dirty sack tossed away and left to rot. But then the sack twitched, a faint sound came from inside. So soft it could have been mistaken for the wind, Mom. The voice was weak, fragile, almost lost in the night. But it was real. Across the street walked a human man named Daniel. He was tired, carrying his tools after finishing a long shift at the repair docks. His boots scraped the ground and his breath showed in small white clouds. He just wanted to go home, eat something warm, and fall asleep, but then his ear caught it. That voice. He stopped. He turned his head slowly. The alley was dark. Too dark. The sound had been so small he wondered if his mind was playing tricks on him. Then it came again, this time clearer. Mom. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He walked carefully toward the alley. His instincts told him to keep moving, not to get involved. The colony was full of trouble, and the smart thing was always to mind your own business. But something about that small voice pulled him forward. His boots splashed through a puddle as he entered the alley. The smell hit him first, rotting food, wet rags, and rust. His flashlight cut through the shadows, landing on a sack lying against the wall. It shivered, not from the wind, but from something inside. Daniel crouched down. His hand trembled as he touched the rough fabric. The sack was damp, heavy. Something inside shifted. Then a small hand pushed weakly against the cloth from the inside. Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. No way. He whispered. He pulled at the string, knotting the sack shut. It was tight, as if someone had made sure it wouldn't be opened easily. His fingers worked fast, panic rising inside him. Finally the knot came loose and he opened the sack. Inside lay a small alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing under the flashlight. Her big dark eyes blinked slowly. Heavy with exhaustion, tiny ridges lined her cheeks, marks of her species. Her thin arms were covered in bruises, and she clutched a torn piece of cloth as if it was the only thing she had left. Her lips moved, barely making sound. Mom. Daniel's chest tightened. This wasn't trash. This wasn't some stray animal. This was a child, left to die like garbage. For a moment he didn't know what to do. His mind screamed at him. Leave her. Walk away. This isn't your problem. Helping her could mean breaking laws. Alien authorities didn't look kindly at humans who interfered. But then the girl's eyes met his. They were not human. But the fear and pain inside them was something he understood too well. Daniel took off his thick work coat and wrapped it around her trembling body. She was ice cold. He lifted her gently out of the sack. She weighed almost nothing. Her tiny fingers clung weakly to his shirt. He stood there in the shadows. Holding her, the alley was quiet again, but in the distance he heard the low hum of patrol drones. The city wasn't safe for someone carrying an alien child. If he was caught, they might call him a kidnapper, or worse, they might take the girl back to whoever had abandoned her. Mom, she whispered again, this time pressing her face against his chest. Daniel felt something stir inside him, something he thought had long died, a need to protect. He tightened his hold. His eyes scanned the alley. The patrol lights swept the main street. Growing closer, his heart pounded. He had to decide now. Walk away and pretend he never saw her, or take her with him and risk everything. The sack lay empty on the ground, dirty and forgotten. But the girl in his arms was alive, fragile, and holding on to him as if he was her last hope. Daniel took a deep breath, pulled the coat tighter around her, and stepped deeper into the shadows. He knew there was no turning back now. The faint voice echoed in his mind again, breaking the silence of the night. Mom, and with that one word, Daniel's life changed forever. Daniel hurried through the narrow back lanes. The alien girl hidden inside his coat. Her tiny body was shaking, and every breath she took sounded like it might be her last. He felt the weight of her head against his chest. Light yet heavy with meaning, his mind raced. What if someone saw me? What if they stopped me? The colony guards didn't forgive humans easily, especially when it came to alien matters, but when the girl whispered again, soft and broken, Mom, he pushed his fear aside. He reached his small apartment, a cramped space in the lower sector. The door creaked as he shut it behind him. He placed the girl on the old couch. Her eyes fluttered weakly, her lips dry and cracked. Daniel grabbed a blanket and wrapped her tight. He boiled water and poured it into a cup, then tore a small loaf of bread in half. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. When he touched the cup to her lips, she flinched. Her eyes opened wider. As if expecting pain, Daniel's heart twisted. Easy. Easy, it's just water, he said softly. His voice calm, steady. She blinked at him, confused. But then sipped slowly. The bread was harder, but she tried to chew. She coughed and almost dropped it. Daniel quickly broke it into tiny pieces, feeding her one by one. Her small hands trembled as she reached out, holding his finger tightly as if afraid he would vanish. Mom, she whispered again, but this time her eyes didn't look lost. They looked at him, searching, hoping. Daniel swallowed hard. No, kid, not Mom, he said quietly. But the words seemed to comfort her. She leaned against him and closed her eyes. For the first time in hours, her breathing slowed, steadying into sleep. Daniel sat still, watching her. His apartment was silent except for the low hum of the heater and her faint breaths. He knew what he had done was dangerous. If someone found out, if the patrol suspected, he could lose everything, his job, his freedom, maybe even his life. But walking away had not been an option. Not after hearing that small, broken word in the alley. He looked at her again, wondering what kind of people could throw away a child like this. She was different, yes, but she was alive. She deserved more than a sack in the dark. Suddenly the lights flickered. Daniel frowned. He thought it was a power issue. The colony often suffered shortages. But then he noticed something. The flicker had happened right as the girl shifted in her sleep. The old radio on the shelf buzzed with static. Lights on the heater blinked twice and steadied again. Daniel froze. No way. Was it her? He leaned closer, studying her. Her small chest rose and fell slowly, calm. But her tiny fingers twitched, and again the radio crackled faintly. Daniel sat back, unease crawling up his spine. This child wasn't just abandoned. She was different in ways that scared people. Maybe that was why someone wanted her gone. Before he could think more. A low thumping sound echoed outside. Daniel stiffened. He turned off the lamp and peered through the thin curtain. Two shadows moved in the street. Tall figures in dark uniforms. A patrol drone floated above, its red light sweeping across doors. Daniel's pulse quickened. His hand went to the switch to kill the heater. But then the girl stirred, letting out a faint whimper. Shh, Daniel whispered, holding her hand gently. He could hear the voices outside now. Alien words spoken in clipped, harsh tones. He didn't understand the language, but the tone was enough. Someone was searching. The girl opened her eyes halfway, sleepy and afraid. She clutched his shirt with surprising strength. No. No, she whispered in broken words. Daniel's breath caught. Did she know they were looking for her? The footsteps outside grew louder. A knock came on the neighbor's door. Heavy and commanding, the voices demanded entry. The drone buzzed, scanning. Daniel held the girl close, heart hammering in his chest. He could almost feel the weight of the sack again, the smell of the alley, the choice he had made. There was no going back now. If they found her, she was gone, and maybe, so was he. He lifted her gently, wrapping her tighter in the blanket. Her head rested against his shoulder. He moved toward the back exit, an old maintenance shaft behind his kitchen. He pulled the cover loose, metal scraping. His breath loud in his ears. He crawled inside, clutching her close. The shaft smelled of dust and oil, but it was the only way out. Behind him, the patrol's knock shook his neighbor's door again. The drone hummed closer. Daniel whispered under his breath. Just hold on, kid, just hold on. The girl stirred, her lips moving faintly. She whispered one word again, the word that had already changed everything. Mom. And Daniel, crawling through the darkness, realized he could no longer deny it. Whether he liked it or not, she had chosen him. Daniel's apartment was dark when he finally returned through the back shaft. He had moved carefully, watching for drones until the street was quiet again. His heart was still beating fast, but the girl in his arms had fallen back into a light sleep. He placed her on the couch again, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. The heater buzzed weakly, giving off just enough warmth to fight the night chill. Daniel sat on the edge of a chair, staring at her small form. Who was she? Why had someone left her in that sack? The question wouldn't leave his mind. The girl stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She blinked at the ceiling, confused, then looked at him. Her voice cracked but carried a strange softness. Mom? Daniel sighed, rubbing his tired face. Not Mom, kid. But you're safe here, he said quietly. but she didn't seem to understand. She reached out with her small hand, gripping his sleeve as if afraid he might vanish. Daniel stayed still, letting her hold on. He noticed again how fragile she looked. Her skin pale blue, her eyes too big for her face. Her ribs showed through her thin frame. She had been starving, freezing, unwanted. He pushed the thought away. Don't think about it. Just keep her safe for now. She tried to speak again. Her words broken, strange, but some he could understand, cold. Hurt, no, go back. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't know her language, but the meaning was clear enough. She was afraid, terrified of going back wherever she came from. He nodded slowly. No one's taking you. Not while I'm here. His own voice surprised him. It sounded like a promise, one he wasn't sure he could keep. That night Daniel tried to rest, but sleep refused to come. Every sound outside made him jump. The hum of drones, the faint steps in the corridor, the whispers of neighbors, all of it felt dangerous now. By morning, news had already spread in the lower sector. Daniel heard voices through thin walls. They say a girl escaped. Royal bloodline cursed. Worth more dead than alive. Daniel froze at those words. He had only half heard, but it was enough to chill his blood. Could they be talking about her? When he looked back at the couch, the girl was sitting up now, hugging the blanket around her. She looked so small, but her eyes, they carried something older, something heavy. As Daniel watched, the lamp in the corner flickered again, once, twice, then steadied. The girl lowered her head quickly. As if ashamed, Daniel stood walking over. Was that you? He asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded just a little. Her lips trembled. Sorry. Daniel crouched, staring at her. Don't be sorry, he said, though his voice shook. He didn't know what she could really do, but he could see why others might be afraid. She looked up, and for the first time, Daniel noticed tears in her alien eyes. They glowed faintly. Not just water, but a shimmer like stars. No want. No want power, she whispered, clutching her hands together. They hurt me. Leave me. Curse! Daniel felt his throat tighten. He wanted to say something, but no words came. How could anyone throw away a child? Curse or not? He sat beside her, letting the silence stretch. Finally, he spoke. You're not a curse, he said firmly. You're alive. And that means you deserve better. The girl blinked at him, as if trying to understand, then slowly she leaned against his arm, her small head resting there for a long time. Neither moved, but outside the colony was not quiet. Daniel could hear more talk, louder now. Stories of hunters moving through streets, soldiers asking questions. Some claimed the girl was dangerous. Others whispered she carried something valuable, whatever the truth. Daniel knew one thing. Keeping her hidden would only get harder. That evening, when he stepped out to get food, he felt eyes on him. His neighbor, an older alien woman, gave him a long look. Her gaze was sharp. Curious, almost suspicious, Daniel forced a smile and kept walking. When he returned, the girl was waiting by the door. She rushed to him, clinging tightly, her eyes wide with fear. Bad men. Come soon, she whispered. Her voice shook, but her words were clear this time. Daniel froze. How do you know? He asked. She pressed her hand to her chest as if listening to something inside. Hear them. Whisper. They want me. Daniel's skin prickled. Could she sense things before they happened? He knelt down, gripping her shoulders gently. Listen, you're safe here with me, he said, trying to sound strong. But inside, doubt gnawed at him. How long could he really protect her? The girl stared at him, her small lips trembling. Don't leave. Please, Dad! The word hit Daniel like a shock. For a moment he couldn't breathe. She had stopped calling him Mom. Now, she had chosen another word, Dad. Daniel looked at her, his chest heavy with emotion. He nodded slowly. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. But he knew this was only the beginning, because in the shadows of the colony, whispers of fear were spreading, and soon, those whispers would come knocking at his door. The next morning, Daniel woke to the sound of boots in the street. Heavy steps echoed through the narrow corridors of the lower sector, mixed with the metallic hum of drones. He pulled the curtain back just a little and saw them. Tall alien soldiers in black armor. Their helmets glowed faintly, scanning the shadows. The girl sat quietly on the couch, hugging the blanket close. Her big dark eyes followed his every move. She didn't ask questions, but Daniel could see fear written all over her face. He closed the curtain and whispered, They're looking for you, aren't they? The girl lowered her head, her small hands shaking. Yes, she whispered, her voice broken. Bad men. Want me gone? Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to ask why, but part of him already knew. No one abandons a child in a sack unless there's a reason, either fear or hate. A loud knock shook a door nearby. Daniel froze, listening. He heard voices speaking in the alien tongue, harsh and sharp. Then another voice, his neighbor's, answering nervously. The girl whimpered softly, pressing against his side. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. Shh, stay quiet, he whispered. The knock grew closer, door after door, like hunters moving in a straight line. Searching every home, Daniel's heart pounded. What if they came here? He thought of the maintenance shaft in the kitchen wall, their escape tunnel. But if the soldiers searched carefully, they would find signs. He needed another plan. The girl's fingers clutched his sleeve tightly. Please, don't give me, she begged. Her alien words mixed with broken human speech, but the meaning was clear. Daniel knelt in front of her, looking into her wide eyes. I'm not giving you to anyone, he said firmly. No matter what, her eyes glistened, and for the first time, she whispered, not mom, not dad, but something new, safe. With you. Daniel felt the weight of those words. Heavier than anything he had carried before. The soldiers' voices grew louder. Now just a few doors away, Daniel moved quickly. He grabbed his old tool bag, stuffed some food inside, and motioned for the girl to follow. She obeyed, clutching the blanket tight around her small frame. They slipped into the maintenance shaft again. Crawling through the narrow metal passage, the air smelled of oil and rust. Every sound echoed too loud. The scrape of Daniel's boots, the faint cough of the girl, the distant slam of a door being forced open. Daniel's palms were sweaty as he crawled faster. Almost there, he whispered, though his own voice trembled. Finally, they reached the end of the shaft, opening into the lower tunnels beneath the colony. These tunnels were dark, forgotten, used only by workers and smugglers. Daniel pulled the girl out, setting her on her feet. She wobbled but stayed close to him. The tunnel stretched long, with pipes dripping water from above. The sound of soldiers was faint now. But Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before they searched here too. As they walked deeper, the girl suddenly stopped. Her head tilted as if listening to something Daniel couldn't hear. What is it? He asked softly. She shook her head, eyes wide. They smell me. Daniel frowned. Smell you? The girl nodded. My blood. They want it. Daniel's stomach dropped. So that's it. Her blood was the reason, her strange power. Her curse, that's why they hunted her. Before he could think more, footsteps echoed behind them in the tunnel. Daniel spun around, his flashlight catching the gleam of armor. The soldiers had found their trail. Run. Daniel hissed, grabbing the girl's hand. They dashed through the tunnel. Water splashing under their boots, the soldiers shouted, their voices bouncing off the walls. The red light of a drone swept past, barely missing them as they ducked into a side passage. Daniel's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. The girl stumbled, nearly falling, but Daniel lifted her into his arms again, carrying her as fast as he could. Finally, they reached an old service door. Daniel kicked it open, leading into a storage room filled with crates and dust. He shut the door quickly, pressing his back against it. His breath came in ragged gasps. The girl clung to him, whispering, Never stop, never stop. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Steadying himself, he looked at her again. Small, fragile, but alive, and he said the only thing he could. Then we'll never stop running. He peeked through a crack in the door. Soldiers passed by, their shadows long in the dim tunnel light. They hadn't seen which way Daniel and the girl had gone. Not yet, but Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The search was spreading. The whispers about a cursed girl with strange blood would only grow louder. And soon every street, every alley, every shadow would be filled with eyes looking for them. He looked down at the girl in his arms, her eyes still wide with fear, and he whispered, As long as I breathe, they won't take you outside. The sound of boots echoed again. Closer this time, the hunt was far from over. The storage room was dark and dusty. Daniel pressed his back against the cold wall. Listening, his chest rose and fell quickly, the sound of soldiers echoing faintly outside. He tightened his grip on the girl. She was trembling, her small hands gripping his shirt. They gone? She whispered softly, her voice shaking. Daniel shook his head. Not yet. His eyes scanned the room, searching for another exit. The main door wouldn't hold forever. If the soldiers searched carefully, they would break through. The girl's breathing grew fast, her alien eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. The light flickered on the ceiling above. Daniel noticed it immediately. "Stop," he whispered, holding her shoulders gently. "Don't lose control." She bit her lip, trying to calm herself, but the fear inside her was too heavy. The old radio in the corner crackled with static. Pipes groaned as if alive. Daniel knelt in front of her, his voice steady but low. "Listen to me, kid. They want you scared. They want you weak. But you're not weak, you hear me?" Her big eyes blinked, tears shining. She nodded slowly. "Stay strong." Daniel gave a small smile. "That's right." A loud bang at the far end of the tunnel made him freeze. The soldiers were moving closer, sweeping every room. He looked around quickly. His eyes landed on a vent high on the wall, small but maybe large enough for them to crawl through. He dragged a crate beneath it, climbed up, and forced the rusted cover loose. The metal screeched. The sound too loud, the girl flinched, clutching her blanket. "They hear us," she whispered in panic. Daniel didn't answer. He lifted her first, helping her into the vent. "Go, quick," he urged. Then he climbed in after her, pulling the cover shut just as footsteps entered the storage room. Through the small slits, Daniel could see soldiers scanning the area. Their glowing helmets turned left and right. A drone floated in, buzzing. Its red light slicing across the crates. Daniel held his breath. The girl covered her mouth with both hands. Her body shook against his. He placed a steadying arm around her. The soldiers moved the crates, checking corners. One of them pointed at the vent. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. But then another voice called from the hallway, and the soldiers left, their boots echoing as they moved deeper into the tunnels. Daniel let out a shaky breath. His shirt was damp with sweat. "We can't stay here," he whispered. The girl nodded silently. They crawled through the vent, the narrow passage cutting into Daniel's shoulders. Finally, they dropped into another tunnel, colder and darker than before. The air smelled of mold and damp stone. Daniel carried the girl again, his boots splashing in shallow water. Behind them, distant shouts rang out. The soldiers had realized their prey had slipped away. The girl stirred in his arms, whispering, "They always find me, no escape." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Not this time," he said firmly, but deep down, doubt gnawed at him. The colony was crawling with searchers. They had drones, dogs, scanners, everything was against them. A sudden flash of red light swept across the tunnel. Daniel cursed under his breath and darted into a side corridor. Shots of energy blasted the wall where he had stood seconds before. The sound echoed like thunder. "Run!" Daniel shouted, grabbing the girl's hand. They sprinted together, his heart pounding. Her small feet stumbled, but he dragged her along, refusing to stop. The soldiers' voices grew louder behind them. The chase had truly begun. Daniel spotted a rusted ladder leading upward. He pushed the girl ahead. "Climb!" he ordered. She hesitated, but his urgent tone forced her to move. Her small hands gripped the rungs. Climbing slowly, Daniel followed close behind. Energy blasts lit up the tunnel below. Soldiers were firing blindly into the shadows. Daniel gritted his teeth, urging the girl to climb faster. Finally, they reached the top, forcing open a hatch. They emerged into the night air, gasping. The city stretched before them, towers of metal, neon lights flickering, streets crawling with patrols. Daniel pulled the girl close, crouching in the shadows. "We have to keep moving," he whispered. She clung to him, her eyes wide. "Everywhere," she said softly. Daniel looked at her, then at the glowing patrol lights sweeping the streets. He knew she was right, but giving up wasn't an option. He brushed the dirt from her face, his voice steady. "Then we stay ahead of them." "Always," the girl's lips trembled. "You protect me?" Daniel nodded, "Always." And in that moment, though the city hunted them like prey, though the soldiers filled the streets, Daniel felt a strange fire inside him. He wasn't just running anymore, he was fighting for something, someone behind them. The tunnel hatch slammed open, shouts rang out. The soldiers had climbed after them. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The night stretched long as Daniel and the girl moved through the colony's dark alleys. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He carried her when she grew too tired. Her small arms wrapped around his neck. Her eyes were half closed. But she whispered the same word again and again. "Safe. Safe." Daniel finally slipped into an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the district. The metal doors creaked as he pushed them shut. Inside was dust, broken machinery, and silence, for now they were hidden. He set the girl down on an old blanket he found in the corner. She curled up quickly, shivering. Daniel rubbed her shoulders, whispering, "Rest, kid." "I'll watch," but her alien eyes stayed open, glowing faintly in the dark. After a long silence, she spoke softly, her voice trembling. "You don't know me," Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down at her small hands, twisting the blanket nervously. "My name..." "Lyra," she whispered. Last one." Daniel tilted his head. "Last one of what?" Her eyes lifted slowly, shining with tears. "Blood. My blood, they say curse, but truth. Power." The air in the warehouse seemed heavier as she spoke. Daniel leaned closer. "Power. What kind of power?" She hesitated, then pressed her palm against the concrete floor. At first, nothing happened, then the dust began to shift, small vibrations spreading in circles. The old machines hummed faintly, as if touched by invisible hands. Daniel's mouth went dry. "That's you?" Lyra nodded, her face full of shame. "Born with it, my people. Afraid, they say my family cursed, they kill all. Left me." Daniel felt his chest tighten. So that was it. Her bloodline carried something her people couldn't control. Maybe they feared she would grow too strong. Or maybe they just hated what they didn't understand. Either way, they had chosen cruelty. He placed a hand on her small shoulder. "Listen to me, that's not a curse. It's a gift." Her lips trembled. "Gift? No. Soldiers hunt me, neighbors whisper, everyone fear me." Daniel looked at her, really looked, and saw more than just a scared child. He saw someone carrying the weight of an entire people's fear. Someone who had never been given a chance. He shook his head. "They're wrong. You're not a curse. You're just a kid who deserves to live." Lyra's tears spilled, glowing faintly as they touched her cheeks. She leaned into him, whispering, "Why you help me?" Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't have a perfect answer. But when he looked at her, small and fragile yet still fighting to survive, he knew, because no one else would. "And because you called me Dad." Her arms tightened around him, her small voice breaking. "You, my only dad now." For a moment the warehouse was quiet, just the sound of her soft breathing against his chest. But outside the colony was alive with noise, drones flying, soldiers shouting, the hunt growing closer. Daniel knew they couldn't hide forever. The truth of her blood meant the search would never end. If they caught her, they would kill her. Or worse, use her. He pulled back slightly, looking into her glowing eyes. "Listen, Lyra, they want your blood, they want your power. But they don't get to decide what you are," she sniffled. "Then, who decide?" Daniel's voice hardened. "You do, and me." "If you'll let me," she blinked, then nodded slowly. Her fear replaced with a fragile kind of hope. But that hope shattered quickly when heavy boots echoed outside the warehouse. Daniel's head snapped up. He cursed under his breath. "They found us." Lyra grabbed his sleeve, panic returning. "They come. For me." Daniel lifted her into his arms, his mind racing. There was no back exit here. Only the main door. He looked around desperately until his eyes landed on a ladder leading up to the roof. "Hold on tight," he whispered, climbing quickly. The metal ladder groaned under their weight. Each step echoed like thunder in the empty warehouse. Below, the sound of soldiers forcing the door grew louder, metal groaning as they pushed against it. Lyra buried her face against his chest, whispering, "They never stop, Dad." Daniel gritted his teeth, climbing faster. "Then neither will I." They reached the roof just as the warehouse doors burst open below. Light swept across the floor, voices shouting orders. Daniel crouched low on the rooftop, holding Lyra close. The night air bit at his skin. He looked out across the colony, the endless towers, the glowing signs, the patrols crawling through every street. There was no safe place left here. Not for her, not for them. He whispered into her ear, his voice steady. "We're leaving this city, kid, no matter what it takes." Lyra's small hands clutched his shirt. Her voice trembled but carried a spark of trust. "You never let go?" Daniel looked into her glowing eyes and without hesitation answered, "Never." The soldiers searched below, but above them, a human and a fragile alien girl prepared to disappear into the night. Bound not by blood but by a promise stronger than fear, the city was alive with searchlights and alarms. Daniel ran across the rooftops with Lyra in his arms. Her small body was wrapped in his coat, her glowing eyes peeking out. Drones buzzed above, scanning every shadow. Soldiers shouted orders in the streets below. "They everywhere," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's breath came hard, his muscles aching, but he held her tighter. "Then we keep moving," he said firmly. At the far end of the roof, a spotlight swept over them. Daniel dropped behind a rusted pipe, holding Lyra close. The beam passed slowly, then moved away. He let out a shaky breath. How much longer could he keep this up? They climbed down into an alley, Daniel pressing his back against the wall. His mind raced. There was no way to outrun all of them forever. At some point they would be cornered as if on cue. The sound of heavy boots echoed at both ends of the alley. Soldiers emerged from the shadows, armored, armed. Their helmets glowed red, and behind them, drones hovered like vultures. Lyra's small hand clutched his sleeve tightly. Her lips quivered. "Dad." "They found us." Daniel set her down gently, placing himself in front of her. His fists clenched, his heart pounding. He had no weapons, no armor, only his body and his will, but he spread his arms, blocking her with his own frame. "She's just a kid," he shouted, his voice echoing. "You're not taking her." The soldiers raised their rifles. Their leader stepped forward, his voice cold. "That child is not a child. She is a danger. She will bring ruin. Hand her over. And you may live." Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "If she's a danger, it's because you made her one. You left her in a sack like trash, but she's not trash. She's my daughter," the leader sneered. "She belongs to us." Daniel's jaw tightened. "No, she belongs to herself." Behind him, Lyra trembled, her glowing eyes filling with tears. She whispered, "Dad, they too strong?" Daniel looked back at her, giving a small, calm smile. "Maybe, but we're stronger together." The soldiers moved forward, rifles aiming. Daniel braced himself, ready to fight even if it meant his end. But then something changed. Lyra stepped out from behind him. Her small frame shook, but she lifted her hands. Her tears fell, glowing as they touched the ground. "I not curse," she whispered, her voice trembling at first, then growing louder. "I not curse." The air around her rippled. Lights flickered across the alley. The drones stuttered, their red eyes blinking. The soldiers froze, confused. Power surged from her tiny body, invisible waves that shook the walls. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Daniel shielded his eyes as sparks of light filled the air. The soldiers staggered, their weapons short-circuiting. Rifles sparking one by one. The drones crashed to the ground, dead machines. Lyra's eyes blazed like twin stars. Her small voice carried like thunder now. "You call me curse, but I chosen." The soldiers backed away, fear replacing their arrogance. The leader tried to shout an order, but his helmet fizzled, his voice cutting off. Daniel watched, stunned but not afraid. He had seen her power before, but never like this. This was not destruction, this was control. Finally, Lyra collapsed to her knees. Her glow dimming, Daniel rushed forward. Catching her in his arms, her small chest rose and fell quickly, her eyes half closed. "Dad, did I do good?" she whispered weakly. Daniel held her tight, his voice breaking. "You did more than good, kid. You showed them who you really are." Around them, the soldiers scrambled back, whispering among themselves. None dared to step forward. The alley was silent except for the faint hum of broken drones. Daniel lifted Lyra, holding her close. He looked at the soldiers, his voice hard. "She's not yours anymore. If you want her, you'll have to go through me, and you've already seen what happens when she decides to fight back." The soldiers hesitated, then slowly withdrew into the shadows. Fear had replaced their orders. Daniel turned away, carrying Lyra out of the alley. The city lights glowed ahead, but for the first time, they didn't feel like prison bars. They felt like a path forward. Lyra stirred in his arms, whispering softly, "Dad, safe now." Daniel kissed her forehead, his voice steady. "Safe, as long as I'm here," she smiled faintly, her eyes closing as she drifted into sleep. And Daniel, walking into the night with the fragile alien girl who had once been abandoned in a sack, knew one truth. His life was no longer just his own. It belonged to her now, and together, no army, no empire, no curse could ever take that away.